This is a Sports Radio Live podcast covering your world of sports. Bryan Houston's Sports Radio Live. It's weekdays at 3 on 99.3 Talk FM, the talk of East Texas.
Now on the APEC VIP hotline, cutting-edge training for the serious athlete, apecgo.com. Joining us from Baton Rouge, LSU pitcher and former Bullard Panther, Nick Rumbelow. How you doing, Nick?
I'm doing good, sir. How you doing?
Doing very well. Thank you very much for being on with us today. How's life in Tigerland?
You know, things are going great right now. We finished up a game in New Orleans last night. Came out with another win. You know, things are going really well. Opening up against Alabama this weekend, and ready to get a little more SEC going.
How's it been going for you? This is your sophomore season. I know when you went into the year, they were talking about you possibly battling to be the closer on this team. Tell me about your year so far.
You know, things have been going really well. You know, we've had a lot of pitchers throwing the ball really great. You know, the bullpen's very strong this year. You know, so we're just throwing out guys out there, just getting the job done, and, you know, everybody's kind of contributing in every spot and, you know, just trying to contribute to the team like that.
Okay, and LSU now number 3 in the nation and with a 27-7 record and really in first place now in the SEC West, right?
Yes, sir, we are. I believe so. You know, we're just playing good. Like I said, we're against Alabama this weekend, so we got to take care of business this weekend and keep going.
Now, you took out 2 out of 3 at Florida. They were the number 1 team in the nation over the weekend. Talk a little bit about how that series went.
You know, we battled all weekend. You know, we had a come from behind win on Sunday. We got down early, and, you know, we showed a lot of our Saturday. We actually played on Saturday. We showed a lot of heart, came back from that. That was a big win for us, you know, to show that we, you know, we can get down and we can come back, and, you know, it showed a lot about our team.
What were your expectations coming into this season? Do you think it would be as good as it's been so far?
You know, we had guys that just worked all summer, worked all fall, you know, a lot of chemistry on this team, which is a huge part of, you know, being a great team. And, you know, there's a lot of guys that are putting in a lot on this team. You know, so I think that what I expected we're getting right now.
How did you end up leaving Texas to go to LSU in the first place? You
know, it all started by coming down here and seeing the stadium and seeing the baseball program. You know, as a kid or as a high school student, you want to go to the best baseball program in the country, and that happened to be LSU. So that's where I found myself, and, you know, that's my new home.
And are you fitting in with all the Cajun vibe and everything down there?
Yeah, you know, it's a very good town, a very good atmosphere. You know, we have the greatest fans in college baseball. You know, we average, you know, around 10 or 11,000, I think, a game. You know, which has led the attendance in college baseball for a number of years. So, you know, you come here and you get a big league atmosphere. There's no other place like it.
Okay, now I got to tell you, when I posted on my Facebook and Twitter pages today that I was going to have you on the show today, there are a lot of people who know your parents are Jay and Lori Rumbelow, who own Bruno's, which is one of the best eateries in East Texas, if not the state. And so when they found out I was talking to you, the questions weren't baseball questions. They were, see if you can get the family sauce recipe from him, and can you get the recipe for the bread too?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My dad and mom do a great job at the restaurant, you know, and they've helped raise me and my 2 brothers, you know, to be just like them. They've set great examples, and, you know, they're running a great restaurant.
Now, do your teammates know that you guys have one of the better Italian restaurants in all of Texas?
You know, I slip a couple pizzas down here every once in a while and let a couple guys try it out. There's been 1 or 2 guys that have actually made the trip with me back home and had a chance to eat at the restaurant, and, you know, get good reviews from them, so that's a good thing. Now,
the question is, though, are you going to, like, smuggle back crawfish and start making crawfish pizzas?
You know, that is pretty funny. You know, that probably wouldn't be too bad of a pizza. Might have to pass that by my dad.
I think you ought to try it. It could be good.
Yes, sir, I believe so.
All right. At the time that the season started, you were up in the 90s throwing. Tell me about, give me a scouting report on Nick Rumbelow right now. How fast are you throwing, and how are things going as far as your pitching is concerned?
You know, things are going, you know, I believe they're going well. You know, throwing strikes, pounding the zone, that's what it's really all about. You know, as a reliever, you come in there and you got to have 2 pitches working, you know, and you gotta throw strikes. That's a big thing. And right now, I'm having pretty good control of my curveball, which has been my pitch this year. So things are going well out of the pen for me right now.
Okay, and how much harder is that to do than, I'm sure you pitched a lot of innings in high school as a starter. How much of an adjustment was that to go to a bullpen type situation for you?
You know, it's a total different pitching philosophy, I guess, out of the bullpen. You know, as a starter, you try to get all your pitches working quick, and you know, you have a couple innings to get things going. But as a reliever, you could go in there with a guy on first and second. You know, you have to pound the zone. You don't have time to, you know, fiddle around the zone and, you know, throw balls in the dirt and stuff like that. You gotta pound the zone early and try to get out of the inning.
How tough is the SEC?
You know, it's definitely the best conference in baseball. You know, South Carolina's won the World Series the last 2 years, and I guess the SEC has really dominated college baseball as of late. You know, every team's got a couple big leaguers on it. You know, so it's a tough conference, but you know, we recruit the players, you know, to play in the conference here, and you know, we compete very well.
Yeah, obviously so. What do you know about Alabama this weekend?
You know, I know they're a good team. Every team in the SEC is a good team. You know, you don't have a team in the conference that you can lay back and say, okay, we got this. So you got to go out there. Any team's got great players in the SEC, so you got to go out there and, you know, try to win the series.
And I know there are a lot of folks in Baton Rouge and all around that are big Tiger fans that would like to see you guys going back to Omaha sometime. How possible is that for this team?
You know, like I said before, this team's got some chemistry that, you know, it's a big thing. And I see it very possible that we make a run in Omaha this year. And I feel like we have the heart, we have the talent, and you know, we have the chemistry, like I said before, to make it back to Omaha. You know, that's our ultimate goal. That's what we work for, and you know, I feel like that's a place that we want to be.
Well, here's the plan, Nick. If you do go to Omaha this year, what you need to do is get your mom and dad to open up some kind of concession out in the parking lot, and you can make a little cash on the side to go along with this thing. I mean, it could be a win-win for everybody.
You know, I believe so. I wouldn't mind having a couple pizzas down there in Omaha, and that could be a good thing. That could be a real good thing.
And keep that crawfish pizza in mind. Now, I'm telling you, that could be a winner here in East Texas.
I believe so. You know, it's some good food down here mixed with some good food in East Texas. So it's
well,
a win-win.
Hey, listen, man, I know you got to get to practice. I just wanted to say thank you very much for coming on with us. Congratulations on your success so far. Best of luck with the Tigers the rest of the way. And I'd love to see that Bruno's Pizza concession thing going on up in Omaha in the parking lot. I'd be the first one in line, okay?
Yes, sir. I could definitely see that happening. But I appreciate you having me on the show today.
Hey, great to have you on, Nick. We'd like to check back with you sometime too in the near future and continue to hear about your success. Okay?
Yes, sir. Very welcome.
Good deal. Nick Rumbelow, LSU Tigers pitcher on Bryan Houston Sports Radio Live on 99.3 Talk FM.
This is a Sports Radio Live podcast covering your world of sports. Bryan Houston Sports Radio Live. It's weekdays at 3 on 99.3 Talk FM, the talk of East Texas.